Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Kathy. Today I am making really quick and easy Halloween cards using Distress Oxide Inks as well as my Cricut. And I wanted to show you how I do my skies using Distress Oxide Inks with a round sponge rather than a blending tool. And I use the round sponge because I can get lighter coverage. I tend to be very heavy-handed when I use the ink blending tool, and for these cards I kind of wanted a softer look. So the yellow sponges, I get them at Michael's. They come in a 3-pack and they're $3. So they're pretty economical, and I cut them into wedges, so I end up with quite a few pieces. I think I get like 8 wedges from one sponge, so a total of 24 wedges. Anyway, back to this card. So what I'm doing is, before I use a cloud stencil, I was just dabbing the ink very, very lightly, and I wasn't too worried about getting it blended or anything like that for that first layer of color. When I come in with the cloud stencil, I'm still using the sponge rather than the ink blending tool, and I'm actually pressing the sponge down pretty hard onto the cardstock, and I'm pulling it towards me to go over the lip of that cloud stencil. That just gives a little bit better definition, but it doesn't cover up that first layer of color that I had laid down. So it adds a nice variation of color, a little bit more depth that way. The colors that I used, I started with the black soot, and then I moved on to seedless preserves. And here's a pretty good, this is a much better view of how much heavier I'm applying the ink with the seedless preserves right there. The last color that I used is Wild Honey. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have used Carved Pumpkin. I think that it probably would have been a little bit more vibrant. Being that I started out with gray cardstock, it kind of dulled the yellow quite a bit. And on a side note, make sure that you do clean off your stencil in between colors. And if you don't have a cloud stencil per se, but you do have like cloud dies, like cloud border dies, I know that My Favorite Things has them, you can cut them from a heavier weight cardstock and use that as a stencil as well. I don't know if there's a design in the Cricut design space or the Silhouette or any of those other digital die type cutting places that has them, but if they do, you could cut that out of heavy cardstock or even blank stencil material, which I'm going to have a video on that a little bit later too, so stay posted for that. Anyway, back to the card there. After I had done the clouds as I wanted them, I did go back in and blended in and added a little bit more color into the spots that were too gray. If some of the areas needed to be blended out, I did kind of press down a little bit harder and go in either a circular motion or a back and forth motion. There's the circular motion just to fill in. And you can see how by doing it, a really light layer, a heavier layer, and then going over it the third time, it just really adds a whole lot of dimension to the background there. So for these cards, I really wanted to do some Halloween cards, and here I'm just adding a little bit of black, and I add the black soot around all the edges. And I'm trying to hurry up because we're supposed to have some severe weather, and if it kicks in while I'm doing the voiceover, there could be some serious thunder crashes going on. So pardon my, all over the map voiceover here. When I was doing these, when I was coming up with the ideas of these cards, I wanted to have a really spooky scene. And so I actually used my Cricut for both of these cards. This is the Spooky Forest image, and I think it's from Rob and Bob. I have more information over on my blog as well. But it was just I thought it would just be perfect to do the Distress Oxide background and then just have that cut out, and all I did was resize it to fit the front of a card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I ended up trimming it down just a little bit so that I could have a little bit of a gray shadow around it because I used gray for my card base. Here I'm doing the same thing. I used the same colors, but instead of landscape card, this one is going to be portrait. Real light hand for the first layer of color, a little bit heavier hand using the sponge with the cloud stencil, and I just basically did the same thing as I did on the first card. This particular cloud stencil is from Rosie's Roadshow, and I'll have that linked down below. I'll also have a couple of links to a few other cloud stencils that are out there as well. I'll also link them up over on my blog as well. And this second card, the image is called Happy Halloween, and it is from Dimensional Halloween Greetings, I think, or Dimensional Halloween Scenes. Again, this was also cut with my Cricut. But when it cut out, there was another arch above those wrought iron posts at the bottom there, and I wanted to have more open space, so I just kind of trimmed it out with scissors. And I adhered this using a ballpoint glue pen because some of those areas were so tiny, and then I go back in with my Tombow multi-mono liquid glue around the edge because I needed more coverage there, and just placed that right there on top. And they're so quick. These cards were so quick and so easy. I was really happy because I do like to make a lot of Halloween cards. I send out quite a few. I mean, considering that it's Halloween, I send out at least 12. And to add to the gate, the Happy Halloween gate, I stamped out this little bat from the Which Way is the Candy stamp set from My Favorite Things. Quick and easy Copic coloring. I just used C7, C5, C3, and C1 for most of the bat, their bodies, their wings, and then for the inside of the ears, I used R00 and R20. Again, I'll have everything linked down below and on my blog as well. And after I had colored these little bats, I just cut them out by hand, and then to clean up and I did it off screen, but to clean up the edges around the bats, I just used a water-based black marker just to clean up the edges a little bit. And that was a handy little tip that I learned from Kelly Lottavola. Again, if you haven't seen her videos, please go watch them because she is just amazing. And I would have never thought to do the black marker around the edge to clean it up when you fussy cut an image. And it works really well. So the blending for these guys, it was really quick and easy. I just kind of used the C7 where I wanted to have the wings the darkest, the shading from the sides of their faces and whatnot. I just wanted to get those guys colored in. I just thought they were adorable. So after I had fussy cut them, I just added foam tape to the back and added them to the front panel there, and then I also add this panel to a gray A2 card, which is folded 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 when it's folded, and that one is actually going to be a top folding card as well. And I have linked a couple more videos at the end of this one, as well as a place for you to subscribe. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, please do so. If there's anything else that you'd like to see, comments are always welcome. And I appreciate you stopping by. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.